Welcome into Kitchen Talk Pickleball Edition. I'm your host, Caitlin Miller. And this week we have Brooks Jones, who's the general manager of Revolve Pickleball in Chattanooga. Brooks and I actually met playing out here in Tennessee. It's good to see you again, Brooks. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Caitlin. I'm doing really, really well, really, really well. Enjoying pickleball life, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. How about you?
Good, good. And Brooks, I love his story because it's like, obviously, I feel like we all play pickleball and we're like, oh, it'd be so fun to do this full time in some capacity. And I know you were kind of like working in the corporate world, but now you have made pickleball a part of your career. So, Brooks, I mean, share a little bit about your story, how you got involved in pickleball and then made a career out of it.
Yeah, totally. So before working in pickleball full time or even part time at all, I was a pastor at a church, and I worked at a church full time, and I also coached CrossFit classes like part time. I've always kind of worked in fitness or sports stuff also. And one of our church members, we joke with him now all the time. I still go to the church that I no longer work at. But we joked that he kind of never should have introduced me to pickleball because he did. And I think 3 months later, I got my certification to teach, and I quit CrossFit and I started teaching pickleball lessons. And it was like, okay, this is kind of fun to start paying for the hobby because tournaments are pretty expensive and stuff like that. And then in August of 2023, I got offered a job as the head teaching pro at the local tennis club, kind of out of nowhere. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing pickleball full time. I still worked part time at the church while I was doing that. And then in December, decided to take this general manager position. And this is now full time for me, like full time. It's all I do. And yeah, I love it.
I know, I mean, it's been quite the journey. I'm sure it was difficult, right, to start a whole facility on your own. So tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So I actually, I was hired pretty like well into it. Like it was plans were finalized, construction was underway, the place was gutted. Our owners, they're two brothers who sold their last company and used a lot of that to do this. But it has been nuts. Like it's been crazy to see a 45,000 square foot warehouse completely transformed into 13 pickleball courts, locker rooms, showers, lounge, everything, and then to kind of start to see it from like, okay, there's all these empty courts, paint's drying, to now there's people in here, hundreds of people in here every day coming to play pickleball. And that process is, it's kind of mind boggling. Like it's not as linear, maybe. I mean, we've only been open for about a month, so that's still pretty quick in terms of startup world, right? Like we're not like super old or anything. Uh, but yeah, it's been crazy to see what it's like to actually establish and create a community, right? Because so much of the real value of pickleball is not that it's a really fun sport. It is. It's not that you can play inside. That is super valuable. But so much of the value of pickleball is the community that you foster and
Yes.
create. And figuring out and learning how to do that through kind of our business is really like the next step that we've really been chewing on and learning, and kind of been the biggest adjustment, I would say, for me, because I kind of naively assumed that if you build a really nice place, people will just automatically start showing up somewhere and drop everything in their lives and start paying to do something that they were doing for free. And that wasn't necessarily the case. Um, so learning how to create that family and community and actually differentiate yourself from just really nice public courts is a huge deal. But I really, really enjoyed that part of it too.
And I was going to say, I haven't made it out to Chattanooga yet, but as you know, here in Nashville, there's a lack of courts. I mean, we don't even, we're getting, I think, a few facilities don't have one yet. But in Chattanooga, was that the same situation? Are you the first like full-time indoor facility to pickleball, or do you have competition in that realm?
Yeah, so we're the first dedicated facility. We're the only one that I know of that has any plans. Like I haven't heard of anything securing anything in our area yet, but we have a lot of public courts. We are very, very fortunate because obviously I met you in Nashville, and that's where my wife and I grew up, and we still go there fairly often. And every time we go back, we're still amazed at how much better, not even per capita, just in general, Chattanooga is for public courts. We
Yes.
have a lot of very active people in local government, and I mean, we probably have 20 plus public courts that are full time dedicated, like not even bring a net or anything. It's like legit full time dedicated public courts in our city. So we have a plethora of options for people here.
Interesting. And are those public courts, are those indoor courts or outdoor or both?
They're all outdoor.
Okay.
There is one tennis club, which was where I taught at, that does have some indoor lined tennis courts, very similar to how Shelby Park is in Nashville, where you bring your own net or you roll out a net. But yeah, all the courts are outdoor except for us. We're the only indoor actual playing surface pickleball courts in the area.
Interesting. Okay. So then going back to kind of the challenge of, getting
Hmm.
people to pay for an actual club, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because the rest of the courts are free and accessible and maybe the timing of it because it is a little bit nicer out than the winter months?
I think so. I also think that I'm a consumer also, and I have a hard time sometimes paying for something that I can do for free or that I can do myself. And I think that honestly, I think that this is a lot of what CrossFit kind of fought early on. If you remember, like the CrossFit movement, which it's still very much a thing, but like, hey, I can. Why would I pay these fees for a gym membership? I can do all of this on my own. And really, the value of it is that yeah, you could, right? But there's so much more value to be found in doing it with people who like grow to become your best friends and people that you invite to your wedding or that you have bridal parties with or whatever it may be, but also paying for like the structure and security of knowing that it can be used how you want it to be used, right? Because public
Yes.
courts, like while they're very accessible and amazing, you can't have a 4-5 to 5-0 league at that league at those courts because they're public, right? And so I think that a lot of it just has to do with being the first to market in the area and kind of helping educate consumers on like what is normal for facilities around the country, right? Because I mean, I'm sure you've been to a lot of facilities around the country, and uh, paying for something that like pickleball is unheard of to a lot of people here. But for people like maybe us who have been to a lot of facilities, we're like, oh yeah, I would totally do this, right?
Yeah.
It's such a better experience.
I know it's funny because I'm like dying for the facility to open here because I want to join, but I have spoke with some people who I play with often and they are hesitant about, joining as well.
Hmm.
So it's interesting because I wouldn't necessarily think that, but like you said, like I want that community that you guys are creating because right now we're kind of running all over the place to find the open courts. So what type of community are you trying to create at Revolve?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that pickleball is funny because anything that has skill ratings can be very funny, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that as someone who plays like 5-0 level stuff myself, I really do value the time where I get to play with people similar level and work on my game and improve and practice stuff. And I only have a limited amount of time in my week to do that. That being said, it's so important to not create overly exclusive groups or a place that feels overly cliquish. Like a lot of the facilities I visited in the area, some of the members, that was some of their complaints was that like they didn't know who the good players were because they were so closed off and all of that stuff. And that's just kind of a natural, I think, byproduct of any time there's a facility of any type of community is people kind of naturally segment. But trying to create people who are just pro pickleball in general, trying to encourage our members to always, always, always like be inclusive with stuff and to kind of pay it forward. Like no one who's a 5-0 got there on their own or by accident.
Right.
And it's extremely important to always be trying to give back to the community in any way that we can. And so like one of the things that I do um, Monday and Wednesday mornings is since I don't teach private lessons anymore is I just do like 3 free skills and drills classes for our members
Yeah.
where they can sign up in half-hour segments with one other person. So basically, you're getting a teacher for a half hour with one other person, and it's free. And we just work on whatever you want to work on, and trying to use that to introduce people to other people and to kind of make connections and make play groups across levels and do socials and stuff like that. But to to really kind of avoid some of the exclusivity that I think pickleball can have. It's not maybe um, as abundant as in tennis or something like that, but I certainly think that it does exist, and we have to be careful, kind of watching out for that at a place like a membership club.
I totally agree. It's funny you say that. I remember I was traveling last summer and I showed up, just with my paddle and myself, and no one knew who I was. And I was trying to play with like the 4550 players, and people were like, "Well, who are you?" Like we already have our
Yeah,
court full and stuff like that. And then it's funny because
checking
throughout
out
the
your
week,
duper.
yeah, like I had to kind of prove
Yeah.
myself, and then they started texting me. But it's like, it's sad because it shouldn't be like that. Like, I feel like that's why pickleball is so special because it is so accessible to so many people. And sure, like you said, you want to play with your level, but especially with a club with people that you want everyone to become a community, I think it's important to kind of unite everyone, at least in some capacity.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a challenge because doing something like membership perks, now people are like, well, this is what I paid for. And everyone kind of has that expectation of what they were signing up for. And some of that involves playing with their group of friends and their level only. Whether or not that's a realistic expectation is kind of, I think, what each facility has to learn how to handle on the front end of when they onboard members is like, what expectations are we okay with people carrying in? What do we need to be like open about on the front end and say like, hey, you're not just going to play with three other people for the rest of your life if you're a member here. Like you're going to integrate other people and stuff like that. Or yeah, I think it's all because the world is so new for a lot of us in the Southeast, especially. I think it's probably a little bit more familiar in like the Northeast because clubs have been around longer. But for a lot
Yes.
of us, I mean, like Nashville still doesn't have one. We're the first one in Chattanooga. I don't know. Like, I think Memphis just got one. So a
Okay.
lot of like places in the state, we're very new to this, right? So there's a lot of unspoken assumptions and expectations, and a lot of things that I think clubs are navigating. How do we set these expectations?
Right. No, it's really interesting. And I've been to, like you said, we've both been to several facilities. Now, are your courts, do you divide them by skill level, or is it just like
Hmm.
whoever reserves it or whatever the designated open play is?
Yeah, we do kind of both. So we have a certain amount of courts that are available for reservation, and that is just based off how busy we are. And we're still getting that data. Just because we're so new, we're still trying to figure out like how many courts can we have available for reservation at this time. At this time, we always have open play courts, and open play courts. There's a loose suggestion for skill levels for like a couple of them. We have some really beginner courts. And that's actually one of the things that I've found that's been the most surprising is how many people are really intimidated by open play. I'm a super extroverted person. I've played sports my entire life, so going to open play, it didn't intimidate me personally at first, but I've talked to so many people who were like, I just don't want to be the worst one. And I'm so new to this, and I would hate for my partner to be rolling their eyes at me because we're losing. And so that's honestly been something that we've leaned into really heavily is something called Journey to 3.0, where we've essentially given people like they've signed up for a super affordable rate every Thursday night the past 3 Thursdays. It's been 45 minutes of instruction and 45 minutes of open play and trying to facilitate some more beginner open play stuff because you and I were introduced to pickleball by someone, right? At
Right.
one point we were beginners. And if pickleball is going to continue to be as successful as it is right now, we have to keep having people feel like they can enter the sport. That's one of the things that people said for a long time was the barrier to entry is so low. And unfortunately, a lot of us, I'll throw myself in there too, are trying to raise that barrier to entry. And a lot of times it's not intentional, but
Right.
doing what we can to make that barrier to entry still super low and facilitating beginner open play is super big for us right now. It's like something we're really leaning into heavily. But we have some super beginner open play courts. We have some intermediate and we have some advanced, which is like 4 or 5 plus. But we don't have like security guards checking dubers or anything like that on any of them.
That's so funny because some clubs actually do. Um,
Yep.
But it's nice that you guys have recognized that so early on. Like you said, I remember when you literally had like your grand opening, you've only been open a month. You've already gotten a lot of feedback from your guests, and now you're taking action immediately to make everyone feel welcomed and comfortable at the club. So props to you for doing that and taking action immediately on that.
Thank you. We have an amazing team. Like seriously, like
Yeah.
staffing is so important, but also we just have people who want to see the facility do well, who like think of programming ideas on their own time and are like, this is something that is like a huge hole in the market, that not just financially, but for the good of the game, like we need to do. And
Right.
those people have been absolutely amazing. There's a, yeah, they're great. They're so helpful.
And speaking of programming, are you hoping to host like tournaments, events, birthday parties, like all those types of things?
Yes, we are hosting our first tournament. We just actually changed the date because we're really big on like wanting to do things well. And
Yes.
our first goal for our tournament, it just was too soon, and there was a couple other local nonprofit tournaments that we didn't want to take away from, that we didn't know about until after we had announced our first date. And so once we found that out, and we found out that like people were really feeling torn, we were like, man, the last thing we want to do is take away from this. We moved it. It's impossible to find a weekend where there's not something else going on.
Yeah.
That's something we just learned, but it's okay. Like at a certain point, you choose a weekend and you go with it, right? And so the last weekend of May, we're going to have our first tournament here. We're hoping that as it starts to heat up outside, people are kind of open to the idea of playing inside, because we have some nice fans that keep it a little bit cooler. But yeah, we're gonna have like cash prizes. We'll give away like, I don't, like $800 to the winning teams in doubles.
Wow.
So trying to have like some open division stuff to, yeah, just to get some high level play in here, but also to have anything from 3-0 to 5-0 slash open at the end of
Yeah.
May.
That's great because I feel like you and I, like, we talk about this often. It's like we always have to go to Florida, or I guess Atlanta and Cincinnati might be like some of the closer areas that we
Hmm.
have to reach that, higher level play. It's nice to see that, once we get more facilities like Revolve and Chattanooga, we'll have more opportunities to play in local tournaments, because that's the way it should be. We live in Tennessee and we have big cities. Like, I don't know.
Yep.
It's nice that you guys are doing that.
Well, thank you. We hope so. I personally am very incentivized to bring really great play to Tennessee,
Yeah.
right? I've traveled, like you said, to a number of tournaments. I went to Punta Gorda in January. Like, I want to have tournaments where I sleep in my own bed, or at least I'm close to it, right?
Yes, I know. Same.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and people, like, I was in PPA Austin a little while back, and everyone's like, yeah, like the pickleball scene in Nashville, like you don't really have one, right? And it's like, oh, that's such a bummer. It's such a bummer to hear, like, coming from these pros and
yeah,
stuff, because we have a lot of great people and we travel well. I feel like there's so many people in Nashville at these surrounding tournaments, and it's like we have the talent, we just don't really have the resources right now, until people like yourself are coming in and creating those resources. So, yeah, we got to definitely build it up in Tennessee. I agree.
yeah, we do. I mean, I remember the first PPA in Atlanta I went to last year. That was the one we almost played in together.
Yes.
I met like the whole Nashville crew, and I was like, y'all are like multiplying. How are there so many of y'all? Like, y'all travel so well for tournaments. It's crazy.
I know we do. And we don't really have, as you've seen, like we literally come with our own nets, or luckily now we have Maryland
Yep.
farms out in Brentwood, but yeah, nothing really in downtown or in the near surrounding areas. So it's interesting. But obviously, I mean, you've spoken a lot about like the challenges with this facility, but what would you say has been the most rewarding thing since you've started all this?
That's a great question. I think so. When I graduated from college and I started working in the church that I was working for, I actually helped start or plant the church that I was working in, and I really wanted to do that to help improve people's lives. Like, that was really a huge focus for me. Wasn't crazy motivated by money. I wanted to do well enough to like not need, but I wanted to really give my time enriching and investing in other people's lives. And this has been a continuation of that. Even though the title of what I do has changed, like so much of what I do hasn't changed. Like getting to see and be a part of a tangible difference for good in people's life is definitely the best part of the job as a general manager. Like whether it's my staff and getting to try to be the boss that I wish other people had been to me in other seasons of my life, or whether it is getting to talk to members and see them almost be surprised when you remember their name, and then when you ask about an event in their life or anything like that. Like that is why I wanted to be in pickleball, is because sports have always just kind of been a language that I spoke, and sports were kind of the best vehicle for me to like pursue that, being in people's lives and trying to do whatever I could to help invest in them and enrich them. So I would say that at the end of the day, like there hasn't been a day where I haven't laid my head on my pillow and said, "Man, like I got to be a part of something really cool," even if it was just a small conversation, even if it was playing a game with three members who maybe were too nervous to join up and play, right? Like little stuff like that is stuff that every day I get to lay my head down and say, like, man, that was so cool. I got to do that.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And that's something, a lot of people don't have. It's like you have a job that you love and are clearly so passionate about, and it is rewarding to you. And that's so amazing that you were able to find that after all these years, and probably something you weren't expecting to do like 4 years ago,
No.
probably even 2 years ago or a year ago.
Yeah. This next month will be the 2 year anniversary of when I first heard of pickleball. So
Wow.
it changed really fast.
Yes, very fast. And it seems to me like, yes, your title is general manager, but I feel like you're the type of person that is very hands on as a general manager.
I think I am. I think that since stuff is so new right now, like leagues, socials, even if we do like a duper round robin or something like that, it's all so new. So a lot of it is like figuring out the process, right? So a lot of it is what is the system that we need to have in place so that we can plug our staff member in and let them run it and make sure that they feel competent to run this, because we have like a girl who's running our women's league that happens on Monday nights now, and she loves it. Like she's like,
Yeah.
I love seeing these women like get to play women's doubles, because she knows how hard it is for her to find women's doubles games. And so getting to see them all get to play women's doubles games and have those rallies where they forget who served and what the score is, but like be okay with that because it was so fun anyways.
Yeah.
Having her get to do that, it's like so great, because now people are leaving and they're thanking her for that league and not thanking me. And that's so much better in my opinion, to like give someone who gets to just be one of our staff members the opportunity to be thanked for helping conduct a league. Like that's ultimately what I want to set our employees up for, is that kind of success.
And what was it like? You said your team is really important to you. It's all about,
Hmm.
the people, especially in a community. What was it like, trying to select your team, and how many people do you have on your team?
We have a pretty big team. We have about 19 staff members, all part-time. And they are all people that I interviewed who wanted to see pickleball grow like more than anything. Like they loved pickleball, they loved people, and they wanted to see it grow. And it was difficult. Like this was the first time in my life I ever had to tell someone they didn't get a job they interviewed for.
Yeah.
And that is like when you're talking to your friends or as a kid dreaming about what you want to do when you get up or grow up, like that's not ever something you consider, is like, oh, to do this job means you have to tell people they didn't get a job, right?
Right.
Um, so that's super difficult, but it's very, very worth it, as far as maintaining like just the highest standard for the team. Because even though I'm the general manager, our team is 90% of people's interactions. They're the first faces they see when they walk through the front door. They're the people who are walking around during open play, making sure that everything's going well. And ultimately, like they largely work here because they want to have a membership and play here and be here all the time. And so they just interact a lot. And so they're kind of like our first ambassadors as far as like on court conduct, how we're welcoming and greeting other people, and how we're going to behave in all these situations. And so vetting them for all of that was super, super important because anyone who's going to like wear Revolve staff, it's really important to us how they're going to act and how they're going to conduct themselves. And so that process was fun, but difficult also.
I could imagine. And what are like some of your, I know you guys have only literally been open for a month, which is amazing. But what are
Mm-hmm.
some of your short-term and long-term goals for the facility?
It's a good question. I think a short term goal. Oh man, let's see here. A short term goal would be to get. Oh man, I would love to see literally like as many people as possible from Chattanooga in our facility, right? Whether that, because we have a broader range of membership options. And I want everyone to have a membership at Revolve, not because I think it's going to be great for our bottom line or anything like that, but because I want everyone to feel like they're a part of the family here. Like, I really want everyone to, when they think of Revolve, think in the language of like we, us, our, right? And nothing does that like someone who is a member because they really are like bought in, literally. Uh, and I want everyone to say like, hey, like there's a membership package. I live 35 minutes away, 40 minutes away, which to you Nashville people isn't that far. To us in Chattanooga, that's like might as well be a different state. Um, so, um, so yeah, I want everyone to feel like that they can be a member here and participate in the leagues and tournaments and all of that stuff and all the fun going on. So I think a long-term goal, this is super ambitious, but I mean, I would love to open another one like closer to downtown. So right now we're like 35 minutes from downtown.
Okay.
I would love to have pickleball be so big that our courts are used so much, so frequently that it's like we have to open another one. Otherwise, people aren't going to be able to get on the court, right?
Right.
So personally, I would love that. Like I think that is long term. I don't know how long term, but I definitely think that's long term goal is to do that.
I love that. And I think it's definitely possible too, with just how quickly the sport's growing. And I think once, everyone hears about that Revolve community as the we, the our, like where everyone is included, it will just entice more and more people, to join your club and to expand to closer to downtown as well.
Totally. That's definitely the hope.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess too, like meeting all these people, from all walks of life, I'm sure, and a lot of people in the pickleball community that, you didn't know of. What is something that people who come to your club every day, what have you learned or what have you become inspired from the people at your facility?
I think I've been inspired by the amount of people who are continually dedicated to being active and moving and staying involved in something like pickleball with community in spite of so many different circumstances and so much different adversity that people have faced. Like people who, for the first week we were open, our bathroom floors were getting refinished. And so they had to go upstairs to our staff bathrooms. People who literally couldn't walk up those stairs to go to the bathrooms were there playing pickleball for 2 hours because of like knee operations or whatever. And so like the fact that, that people are that committed to it, like in spite of that is so inspirational to me. Seeing the people who are here who are trying to go out of like literally watching them go out of their way to include people and help people along their journey and still be kind and generous in spite of the fact that they're paying a membership and they could just look out for themselves, right? Like that has been so inspirational to me, and I think it's so much of the spirit of pickleball, and it's what I want to basically be something that's multiplied in here is like that culture that is just, I think so many of us fell in love with pickleball for.
Yes, definitely. Definitely why I did. And Brooks, it's so great to see you be able to put this dream to life. You guys have been open for a month. I'm sure you'll just keep expanding. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I love hearing it, and stay tuned to see who will join us in the kitchen next time.